Hi, everybody. So, welcome to my first video pertaining to some business education. Now, for people who are not familiar with this whole situation, a video game called Day of Dragons, manufactured or produced, I should say, by a company called Be Awesome Games, LLC. They've been going through a lot of drama lately. And a lot of the drama seems to situate more so on aspects that a lot of people apparently don't understand, or they don't have general knowledge of the topics at hand. And so what this video is about, it's a way of providing some business education. And then at the same time, it's also there to, how should I put this, kind of curb some of the drama, so to speak. So there are multiple topics I'm going to be going over. Like, first off, I'm going to disclose I am not an attorney or an attorney spokesperson. Take what I say with a grain of salt and always consult your lawyer. So, despite the fact that a lot of people are criticizing the lead developer of Day of Dragons for his name is Jail, well, at least he goes by Jail. I apologize. He goes by Jail on his web stuff. But anyways, people criticize Jo because he got a lawyer. He's doing legal things. And the thing that people don't quite understand is that Jo getting a lawyer, which I'll explain later on in this, was actually a very good thing for him to do. It's a very good thing for him to do. And it also protects you, the consumer who invested the $20. I mean, of course, some Kickstarter backers paid more than that. I get it. Just not getting at that this second, but you need to understand that Jail actually consulting a lawyer on how to handle things, that was the right thing to do. Anyways, hi Teeter. So another one is Pookie. I absolutely love the concept of Pookie. So Pookie is a giant worm that's in the game. So if you play the game, just be careful where you choose to sleep because Pookie will probably find you and try to eat you. That's a fun thing. Anyways, so what this video will not cover. I decided to hold a lot of drama from on Discord. Mainly because I don't want to start a bunch of flame wars, so everyone's trying to decrease some of the drama on there. The developers are, anyways. There are a lot of people who made a lot of false allegations, such as referring to a developer as, how should I put this? I'm trying to put this in a very light way. They wrongly accuse a developer of performing action, of being the kind of person who would perform actions that would be unlawful, pertaining to Myers, was completely unfounded, completely not okay to even suggest. There's no evidence of the basis to it. Is literally, so say you need to also understand that this entire situation is you have a whole other side that really just wants to create drama, and they will literally go to lengths that are absolutely insane just to spark up fights and arguments. And so in this video, I'm actually going to be avoiding some of that because I know that I'm going to get backlash for us anyway. I know that there's some people who are just too immature to really handle some things. So just take that with a grain of salt. Another thing is I will also define my understanding of general complaints. I will not be going over YouTubers yet in this video, as I'm not petty like some of them are, although there is a particular screenshot that does kind of, it's a screenshot of a statement that someone actually made, in contrast to what other people have said. But anyways, you'll just see it's just going to be some random thing that's there. And you'll also see some snapshots of Depths of Iona Vigams in production. Another thing I will not go over Emberfall. So there's some stuff that's kind kind of irking me, I should say, regarding their dev team and how they've handled a couple developers that I have, and that's an thing that's totally separate from Day of Dragons. I'll deal with that later. And also Dogmatis Dragons. That's another game that is in development. It is a dragon game. They use a lot of the same assets of Day of Dragons, but there's some stuff that they've got going on that, again, I'm also going to refrain from in blowing up, because I'm in works with talking to a developer and sorting out their kind of garbage. And hopefully that game will actually turn out to be really amazing, and I hope it does. I really do hope it does, just as I hope that Emberfall turns out to be a really good game. So, let's go over the general concept of business structures. So, first off, what is a business structure? A business structure, essentially, think of the frame of a house, okay? So, you got ramblers, you got duplexes, you got triplexes, and each of these houses, they have different walls. So you go into a room, it might be different from another room. You go from one house to another, they might have different, but however, they might have even similar layouts, okay? So the best way to think of a business structure is think of basically a house. They all pretty much have the same conceptual materials. They have the same building codes for the most parts. Of course, it varies between county lines, blah, blah, blah. I'm not getting into that. But one of the key things that I want to make clear is the difference between a sole proprietor and a limited liability company. So one of the single largest things that gets brought up time and time again, and it doesn't matter if you go to Reddit, it doesn't matter if you go through Discord, doesn't matter if you go through even Steam community or where have you do it. So this one of the biggest things that people complain about is during the course of Kickstarter, which I'll get to later on through this, is the course of Kickstarter for Day of Dragons, people criticize J.O. because he was a sole proprietor. And the other thing they criticize him on is because he became a limited liability company later after the Kickstarter. So I'm going to explain that's not a bad thing. It's really not. You actually would want him to be a limited liability company, not a sole proprietor. But at the same time, in relation to owning a business, you can be a sole proprietor and still own a business. You can have, for example, here's an easy one, Uber. Uber started as a sole proprietorship, and it was one single guy, and they were a sole proprietorship for actually a couple of years. So he didn't go to being a corporation or even a limited liability company for a couple of years. And then, of course, it formed as an S Corp, and then he actually formed as a full-fledged corporation. So you see these names up here, and let me explain to you what exactly all this really means. So all this, Jay, like, was a sole proprietor, was limited liability company, like, why are these such big deals? So they're really not big deals. Based on the amount of income that the business actually generates. So of course you do want to talk to a lawyer. Lawyers can talk you through what particular business structure would probably benefit you best. So for example, sole proprietors work better if you're under around 75 grand. That's where it's kind of better to get out of being a sole proprietor. And the reason for that is because as a sole proprietor, your personal property is the exact same as company property. So your car, it can be considered a business asset and a personal asset. So you really have no corporate veil as a sole proprietor. Because, for example, if you buy a desktop, like 5 desktop computers for 5 employees that you have, right? those are still considered personal assets and business assets. So if you have personal issues going on financially, another party can actually go for those desktops. And you can't claim, oh, those are business things. No, because corporate veil doesn't exist. Well, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. It exists, but doesn't exist in a manner that you would have as a limited liability company or an S Corp. Now, on the flip side, money, finances. So, as a sole proprietor, you can have a quote company, and I'm gonna say it's like quotation mark kind of a thing. You can have a company bank account and then a personal bank account, but when it comes down to it, those are both basically the same lot of money. You can't, it's very hard to distinguish what is actually company assets and what is personal assets as a sole proprietor. And this is something that I personally feel like even Zhao realized because that's why he went to a lawyer and he became an LLC, which I'm going to go to in a second. That actually was a good thing for him to do. And for you as an investor, someone who's actually put money into his game, like over 500 grand worth of money, that's actually a very great thing that he did to do that because he literally separated himself from being able to just touch the money. That's so going to another claim that people have regarding this whole situation for business, and this comes down to business structure, is jail run taking money and running away. And this is why the accusation is, I mean, so I'm going to throw out a personal opinion. I feel that it's a stupid accusation. Here's the reason why. Now let's talk about limited liability company. So limited liability company is where the assets belong to the actual person, or excuse me, belong to the actual company. It's the first stage of it. Let's see here. So you do have limited liability partnerships, which I'm not going to be going into that because it's just a totally different thing. But a limited liability company is essentially a business structure that can combine the pass-through taxation of a partnership or sole proprietorship with the limited liability of a corporation. That is the general definition of it. All right. And I understand I'm calling this a business structure. It's really a legal structure, but business structure is easier to understand for most people. All right. So the big thing to this and why this is super important, I understand I've kind of going in circles on this, is in features, you got a separate entity. There's limited liability, you got taxes, you have simplicity and flexibility. And one of the biggest advantages is pass-through income taxation and flexibility. So what that essentially means is it's better on taxes than a sole proprietorship. In comparison to sole proprietorship, you actually save money on your taxes. And there's also fewer regulations and a lot less paperwork as being a limited liability company because it's all pretty straightforward. And as an LLC, one person can be an LLC. Versus a corporation, you need more than one person. Okay? And then as far as creating a limited liability company, and this is something I always encourage, you have to basically pick a business name. You gotta file articles of organization, and of course your state's gonna vary and all that kind of stuff. You have to create an operating agreement. The operating agreement is essentially how will you work, what are you, what is this, what is that. That's essentially what that is. And in some states, you also have to publish a notice. So this is where you contact a lawyer about. Then the license and permits is also what you need. But the biggest limitation to being an LLC. So when Jail turned to be an LLC, even though he made 500 grand off Kickstarter, you still have other things to invest into. But here's the thing: you can't really get much investors to it. You can't really attract that many investors being an LLC because investors, they are limited as to what they can actually get back from you as an LLC. So there are some limitations to that. So that's why a corporation can be a better fit for that. But again, it's jail's business. I'm just gonna make this up front. When I'm saying all this stuff, this is still jail's business. He can choose whatever he wants. He has the power to choose what he wants to do. And anyways, moving back onto it, in some states, LLCs also have self-employment taxes because, of course, taxes you can't really get away from. Um, One of the biggest things that comes up a lot, which is the other structure, which would kind of, for the income amount, would kind of make more sense, is what's called an S corp. Okay. Now, what is an S corp? An S corp is a corporate formality. All right. It's usually for retail or some massive big things, but you're limited to a number of shareholders you have. So the number of investors you can only have like I don't quote me on this. You'll have to do your own research on it. It's like 100 or so people. You can only have like 100 or so, I believe. Now you do want to verify it, but it's taxed like a corporation, passively with an income limitation. Essentially, it can only be taxed up to 25%. Of course, this is federal stuff, so check with your lawyer for your specific area. Don't just take my word for it. Verify the information. And then in an LLC, it doesn't have to have the entity formality because you can waive that. However, doing that is also very high risk. All right. So, for example, a good example of an S corp. Uh, let's see. A good example of an S corp would be a gaming studio with numerous chances of having other investors come in, those sort of things. Basically, bigger gaming studios. So financially, he's off to a good start on that, and that's why kind of an S corp would have been better model. But again, being LLC, there's no real issues. Him choosing to go from a sole proprietorship to an LLC instead of an S corp, the only real major thing that could even come up as any kind of thing is, why would he not want to save money on taxes? That's it. It's not a crime. It's not fraud. It's not someone trying to commit grand larceny. It's not Title 31 violation. It's not money laundering. It's really just a matter of tax model. And he probably just went for the model that made sense to him at the particular time that him and his lawyer discussed things and they figured things out. But that's Zhao's business, and that's between lawyer. That is not between anybody from Kickstarter. That is not anyone's business on Discord. That's him. Okay. That's his company. That's his baby. It's his game. You guys need to figure some stuff out regarding this drama for this because it's totally wrong. But anyways, limited liability companies, that's what Zhao has. And now as far as insurance goes, what do you have for insurance requirements on your company? This varies based on state. So each state has its own thing, and then of course the federal government has its own thing. And then of course your industry that you represent as a business has your own regulations, stipulations, and everything else. So it's a limited liability company. I can tell you right now that jails most likely has insurance bonds. Jail most likely has someone doing bookkeeping. He most likely has a whole bunch of other things going on in the back works that he really is under no obligation to have to throw forward. He's not. And to make claims or demands that he has to is ridiculous. Because even with Star Citizen, I'll share that for later. So, taxes. So, this is basically what I was talking about earlier. The only thing that could be questionable is his choice of going to an LLC instead of an S corp. That's the only thing you can really question about it. I mean, as far as the taxation goes, it's fine. So I've actually made reach outs. I've actually communicated with particular entities, and I'm going to call them entities because this is a YouTube video. Don't need a bunch of stupid drama going through it. But anyways, I've talked to some entities as part of my job, as part of what I do for a contract work. So another disclosure, I do contract work where particular companies who can be affected by other companies and other things like that. I get contracted to do what's basically called a security audit or security I can't talk. Security analysis and other things of that nature, in which I go over from top to bottom what is going on, was a whole situation. So you got this drama going on, you got this person posting all these videos about these kind of things. Where are these accusations coming from? Okay. What's going on? That's what I investigate first. What's going on? First try to get their side of the story. Now that was actually that was actually kind of comical. Um, but I'll refrain from getting more into that because that goes back to that Discord drama. Um, Try to find a problem. So what I try to do initially is try to define what is the complaint. So now, if someone has a legitimate complaint, I have no issues actually providing the proper channels to make that complaint. So they already had, so these individuals that are actually that Zhao's actually dealing with, which this comes back to the type of business structure and the business practices, whatever. The situation actually went to the Federal Trade Commission. Now, knowing people in the Federal Trade Commission who have access to reports made to the Federal Trade Commission about particular companies by name, um, there's no grounds for the complaints because there's no wrongdoing. So this comes back down to, let's say, taxes. So money laundering. What is money laundering? Money laundering is a Title 31 violation, and that's something I'm very, very intimately familiar with just because of work I've done in the past regarding financial data and everything else, cost analysis, surveys, other things like that, in which it's called money laundering. So back to money laundering. Money laundering is when you take a whole bunch of money and it's not taxed. So anytime you get a source of income, now verify with a lawyer, verify with your state, because a lot of places you have different regulations, because even state IRS may be different from federal IRS, if that makes sense. Like in Ohio, they have their own version of an IRS. Something to be aware of, because I can guarantee you when they hear about someone making 500 grand, they're going to be looking for their cut. The government's amazing at that. At least the United States government is amazing at that, is making sure you pay taxes. Okay. And that's not a joke. Um, so as an LLC, you have to file quarterly. Again, check with your local areas. But as an LLC, again, you have to do your finances quarterly. Same with an S corp. Okay. As a sole proprietor, it's pretty much every year you have to turn in by like January 26 or something like that. I gotta double check my own stuff on that for that matter. I have a bookkeeper that does my finances. But anyways, when you're dealing with taxes, this is the biggest thing. You cannot claim that someone's just taking money and running away with it, especially if you just registered yourself as an LLC and you got 500 grand from some third party funding site. I promise you, I can guarantee you, even with the clothes on my back, that he's had to pay taxes and he has not committed money laundering, because that would result in a Title 31 violation And that 31 violation would immediately involve the Federal Bureau of Investigations. For people who don't know what the Federal Bureau of Investigations is, that is the FBI. That's that 3-letter alphabet soup that everybody, even little kids, have heard about the FBI, right? So that's the easiest way that you can pretty much guarantee it's not some kind of scam or fraud, is because when you're talking about dollar value of that amount, you're talking about dollar value over $5,000, okay? We're talking about a dollar value that had to have been taxed because Kickstarter by default will tax it to begin with. Because they're gonna separate a statement for the person who does a Kickstarter. They're gonna be able to do taxes, doing all that other stuff, and so they can claim it and everything else. But what the FBI will immediately do when anytime you get over $5,000 on anything, the FBI is flagged, right? Same with when you make a purchase of $10,000 or more, the FBI is flagged. And then in the same time, if you win something like at a casino that's $1,200 or more, the FBI gets flagged. So I can tell you right now, that money, the FBI knows he got it. The FBI knows everybody who got a little penny, even 1 penny from that allotment. They know. Okay, so you really can't call this fraud when he's registered as an LLC and that money is in the name, whether it's his name, but on behalf of Day of Dragons, it doesn't matter. That money, I promise you, it has been taxed. There's no fraud that can be even derived from this. If you really think that the FBI would not want to jump on a 500 grand transaction if it was a fraud attempt, I'm going to refrain from my personal opinion, but yeah, I'm just going to leave it at that. So let's go over financial damages. So let's define what a financial damage is. A financial damage is essentially when you make a certain amount of money by a certain amount of actions over a period of time, and then something occurs, and now your sales have dropped, your income's dropped. The difference from the income drop to your old previous sales, as a result of somebody's actions, that is called financial damages. Okay. So in some future videos, especially in the false allegation video that I will eventually be launching, I'll be going over financial damages to a very heavy extent, because the false allegations actually do impact finances for the game, because a lot of this drama stuff started initially after the Kickstarter, but before the initial launch on December 4th. So what that essentially causes for a business is a reduction in sales, a huge reduction in sales. All right. So could Day of Dragons have made more than 500 grand in game sales after launch than it did before launch, or as it did before launch? That's a big thing that can be argued, because you got some YouTubers who decided to make statements and claims that, as I explained before, really don't make logical sense, because a lot of these people, I just want to make clear, are not law enforcement. They are not involved with any form of federal investigation. They've probably never even been in a federal investigation auditing other people who actually were doing wrongdoing. Okay, that's the biggest thing, because a lot of people that I've actually found, so from information that I've obtained, a lot of users were under the age of 17 And then, of course, you got a few users between ages of 20 and 24. And then, oh my gosh, I've only got maybe 5 people confirmed between the ages of 28 and 34. 5. So you got a huge younger crowd that really don't understand what they're quite going off about because they've never seen. They basically see these YouTubers making statements and they base their own theories and ideas off of those statements. And that's a big issue because that's what causes financial damages, from people doing returns on PayPal to people doing returns on their credit card chargebacks. I mean, it's all over the place, but this is all money lost from Day of Dragons, and that is financial damage. And now what financial damages means as far as legal restitution on it. Oh man. Um I'm just gonna put this out. It's publicly known knowledge that Day of Dragons made 500 grand in 2 months. Okay. This is a pre-release game, has not even been released to early access. It already grossed 500 grand. All right. Typically, and this actually this comes from a couple of articles I went through. Please do your own research on it because I implore you, because every source that I looked at, it had a different number. That's why I'm not including it on this, because each source had different numbers on them, and each source. So they're talking, Aaron, from 2.5 to 9.7 times is essentially was expected within the first month of a release of a game title. Like Call of Duty Modern Warfare, when the brand new one launched, they estimated 4 times the sales after the game released than before the game was released. And when you count the pre-release pre-orders, those 4 times less than the actual amount that was derived from that. And that's actually kind of from several different sources. Again, please verify your own sources. The source for that particular that I looked at was actually Game Informer. But I found other sources that said that it was 1.8, and another source that basically said that it was 5.6. So again, double check your stuff. Verify his numbers for yourself because it varies. That's why I'm not including it in this slide. But what that means in financial damages to what some people can be liable for, the difference that they did not make, and by difference I mean the negative dollar value that was not generated that can be argued as a result of all this drama, that's what can be owed. So if you base it just even if it's a 1-to-1 ratio of pre-release to post-release sales, you're talking $6 million in a year. You're talking $250,000 should have been expected as revenue when the game launched throughout the month of December of 2019. So anything less than $250,000, that difference can be considered a financial damage, and that can actually be pushed for restitution. A business, any business, it doesn't matter what business you are. It doesn't matter if you're an LLC, an S corp, a C corp. Doesn't matter if you're a sole proprietor. That's financial damage, and if you're liable for it, they can go for it, and they have legal means to do it. But again, don't take my word for it. Talk to a lawyer about that. See what a lawyer actually has to say. And I'm not talking about a paralegal. I mean an actual lawyer who does this for a career. Those are people you should talk to. So, another claim this is something that's huge, is people saying that Joe didn't have proper licensing to use things. Jo didn't. I keep calling him Joe. I'm so sorry, Jo. I don't mean to butcher your name. But let's talk about intellectual property. So, what is intellectual property? Intellectual property is essentially you have an idea, okay? So, that idea is intellectual property. It doesn't have to actually exist yet. It could be something that's written down on a piece of paper. It can be a drawing that's being held over your head by a fish hook. I mean, it's whatever you want to do. So, intellectual property is usually licensed to the creator, okay? Unless you have a business setup where the intellectual property that was created for a product automatically belongs to a company, then you basically got to purchase it and then that is yours. So by purchasing it, you're basically buying a license to use it or have it or transfer ownership of it to you. That is how intellectual property is sold and bartered and everything else. It's a matter of who actually owns that product. Like, for example, a graphical user interface setup where you've got the company logo, you got the game's logo, excuse me, you've got the image, the icons chosen, and things like that. Those would be items of intellectual property, right? And so the artist who designed it all, if they're, say, a freelancer, then they actually own it until you buy it from them, until the stipulations of ownership transfer is complete. That artist actually owns the stuff. Okay? So, and there's no argument, no debate on that. And then, so how does this relate to Day of Dragons? Right? So, in Day of Dragons, Jia Ho is the artist who made a lot of things that Jo used for Kickstarter, for the game, things like that, or it's going to use for the game. Excuse me. And so people are saying that Jo did not have licensing or the proper licensing as seen by a particular most recent YouTuber. He said, God, not exact words, up pretty much. What he said is Jo did not have the proper licensing to use it at the time of the Kickstarter and was basically boasting on how Jo had no right to use any of this, blah, 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 Crimea River kind of stuff. So this is where that stuff is wrong. As a business and as a content creator, I know personally, so content creator as in code that I write, things like that for freelance work that I also do. So when you have a business and that business has you create stuff for them, even if they haven't paid you yet, as a content creator, you have the right to give a temporary license of use to that company to use your stuff until they can pay you under the stipulation that they properly provide payment or services, whatever the stipulation is to be met, to you to actually either have the product ownership transferred or to have general rights to just use the product. This is called a intellectual property loan. So an intellectual property loan, in other words, is you made a pancake recipe and you made a waffle recipe, right? So you give the pancake and waffle recipes over to a diner, and that diner is making your pancake and waffle recipe for all the guests to enjoy. But they have a stipulation that they will pay you at the end of 2 months for letting them use your recipe and also for them to continue to use a recipe and have rights to that recipe, whether if they directly take ownership of that recipe or not. you are giving them the temporary license to use it. So it's not a matter of if that is properly licensed or not, because it is, because you're the content creator, you are consenting to them using it, and it is between you and the diner for them being able to make your waffles and your pancakes. It is not up to little Sally down the road. It is not up to the mayor of a city. It is not up to some YouTuber who thinks they know better than what a content creator has chosen to do with the product and content that they created. Is between the business and the content creator. That's who it's between. Any licensing issues, if there's a licensing issue, I can promise you that the content creator will say something, and they will say something to the party that's actually using their stuff. Because at that point, they can actually go to a court of law and do what's called a lien. And they can say, you know what, you did not follow through with our agreement for you to handle our stuff in our intellectual property loan that you said you would pay me after this certain period of time, and you haven't paid me. Now I'm going to take the amount that you said you're going to pay me, and I'm going to put a lien on your house. I can put a lien on your cars. I can do all that fun stuff. So if it really was an issue, if Jiaho had an actual issue, Jiaho would have gone through the proper steps and proper channels to protect his product. Okay, so people going on about Jiaho versus Jao, it's ignorant. It's very, very ignorant, and it doesn't even make sense to make. So it's just a point of drama that people want to fabricate by creating an issue that's not an issue, and it doesn't exist as an issue. So you're trying to get in between a company and its content creators with content creators who have consented to the use and everything else of the product based on stipulations that have been agreed upon. You're being ridiculous. Now, lawyers, here's a huge, enormous topic. So people go on how, and I've seen this argument hundreds of times, thousands of times even, I could argue, based on which Discord server and everything else you go through. So people claim that Jo's immediate move to get a lawyer after Day of Dragons released was so he can figure out how to steal money and run away with it. That is so wrong, it's not even funny. And I'm going to explain why. What does a lawyer do? A lawyer practices law. A lawyer is your best friend as a business for a lot of reasons. And a lot of these reasons pertain to how do you protect yourself, how do you protect your business, and how to protect your consumers. All right. So, how do you know how to handle 500 grand? Right? Someone just takes 500 grand, throws in your pocket, and says, hey, you know what? I want you to make your 3 dragons. Which, by the way, as well as about, you only asked for 12 grand. Anyways, so I want you to make your 3 dragons, and I'm going to give you 500 grand to do it. Now, you only need 12 grand of that 500 grand. So what obligations do you now have for that 500 for the rest of the 400 and 78 grand that's pretty much remaining from that? Now, so not counting being taxed, not counting any of that. How do you know what you can do for and what your obligations are? That's why you get a lawyer. What else can you do with the money? So you got this money on a stipulation you're just going to use on dragons. Now, what if maybe your content creators could use a new computer system to help develop the dragons better. That's a business expense. That's a legitimate business expense. Can you do it? Who's going to be the one? The lawyer is going to be the one to tell you yes, you can or can't do it, because a lawyer is your point of contact to identifying what is against the law or not. So when you're talking about things, say like in foreign nations like the European Union, or excuse me, not foreign nations, that's just a general organization overseeing foreign nations. It's like an alliance thing. But anyways, like in the United Kingdom, how do you know if what you're doing is against UK law or not against UK law? That's where you talk to a lawyer. Okay. How do you know if the what I just said to Sally can be considered this? Is this illegal? Yes or no? Your lawyer's the best point of contact for that. All right? And then, so fraud, how do you protect yourself and the money from allegations of fraud? The way to do that is to find out by a lawyer what is the best thing to do. Again, now I'm going back in circles saying this because I want you to understand this. I want you to really, really understand this. The lawyer's job, any lawyer's job, is to protect their client legally. And by legally, that does not mean fraud. Legally, a lawyer cannot ever suggest, imply, or anything their client to do something that is unlawful. That will never happen. That's a dream. Stop dreaming. Just gonna leave that right there. So, non-disclosure agreements, confidentiality agreements. So, what is good or bad about these? They're amazing things to have. As a business, if you make any form of content, you have any form of product internal to a business, you will have a non-disclosure agreement and a confidentiality agreement. They're pretty much the same, and they're the same and not the same. I'm not here to disclose what's basically the difference between them. It's just basically to protect company property and also to protect company information. That's what these come down to. Okay. So there's a lot of stipulations that now J.O., Vitalia, Bad Parrot, all these people, they're such horrible people, all because they suddenly want people to sign NDAs and non-disclosure agreements. So that's so wrong, it's not even funny. And here's the reason why I'm going to say that. So a non-disclosure agreement is to protect company information, like I said before. Okay, so these are things that should be in place when it first starts. So that, I mean, as a business, a potential overlook that maybe jail had because he thought that he could trust some people, right? So if you rely on trust, sometimes people tend to go out of place. And when they go out of place, they kind of violate that trust in a lot of ways. Where it be from an insider providing information to a wannabe journalist who is supplying that information, who is turning around and getting that information to a, for example, a paralegal who's trying to pretend they're a lawyer, and that creates a whole mess of things. Creates a whole mess of things because things get misconstrued, things get mixed around, and then as a business, by the time you discover that you have a data leak or a data breach, sometimes it's too late to try and fix things. Because if someone's trying to over exaggerate something, how do you validate if it's being over exaggerated or not, when now you cannot, in confidentiality, talk to people and expect them to not spread that information too? Okay? So in some circles, the kind of nature of some things that happened or have already transpired is people complaining about, say, particular moderators who were removed for supposedly no reason, but they refused to acknowledge the fact that they were giving information to someone who was saying that they were a journalist, um, and then defending how that journalist is their friend, blah blah, it's all okay. And here they are giving company information that they perceive is accurate and correct information, and then you just have a whole bunch of drama stem from it. A confidentiality agreement or non-disclosure agreement would have prevented that, or excuse me, mitigated most of that, as there would have been fear of reprisal from leaking information to the public that is not authorized for release, or if it's exaggerated where it's true. It doesn't, in that particular situation, it doesn't really matter. Okay. So talk to a lawyer about that, because a lawyer's gonna laugh for the most part, um, in regards to a lot of that whole situation, because it all could have been prevented by a non-disclosure agreement. So, having said that, is this mocking him? No, it's not mocking anybody. I'm really not. I'm just being straightforward because I'm trying to be as neutral and honest as I can. This is something that should have been in place when the project first started. But is it too late to do this? No, it's not. It's never, ever too late to push a non disclosure agreement or a confidentiality agreement at all. It is never too late. And in fact, you can actually make them retroactive. So if someone actually agrees to it, they can agree to it and just have it done. All right. And that's something to keep in mind of for things that are ongoing with this, is every business, even McDonald's, makes you sign confidentiality agreements. I don't know if you knew that, but they do. If you work at Walmart, you have confidentiality agreements and non-disclosure agreements that you signed, pertaining to everything from even a customer's phone number. Customer comes up to you, they tell you their phone number. You are not allowed to turn around and give that phone number to even your own coworkers. If they don't have a business use to get it, you can't even give it to them. And if you did give it to them, not only did you violate a lot of PII laws, uh, you literally. I'm just not going to try to go on a tangent on this because, long story short, there are a lot of ways that legally you can jeopardize yourself. But you should always, always, no matter what your product is, no matter what your business is, even if you're just a flower shop, always get non disclosure agreements and confidentiality agreements. Okay? Always do it. My best advice, always do it. Kickstarter. Here's the big one. This is what started all of this stuff. So, Day of Dragons, as a business, you can go to all these secondary funding sources from Kickstarter, Indiegogo, Alpha Pack, any of these things, and you can basically, in some cases, get a couple $1,000,000 to maybe just a few $1,000s, whatever you need to start up your product or your business. This is in place of, say, having get a not student loan. God, I almost said student loan. This is a process of getting a business loan, except it's not a loan. It's just saying, hey, this is my idea. If you guys pay me to start it up, I'll give you this as a service, as a reward. And that's the gist of it. So, in grand scheme, so as a kick up, it's a great idea. It's awesome. And it's fantastic that people actually do this. But does this entitle people to ownership of anything? No, it doesn't. Right? It really doesn't. They're not owners of anything. So despite how much particular YouTubers and particular social justice warriors try to push, particularly about the people who did the Kickstarter, Now, I understand some people on Kickstarter did pay more for certain things. However, as a reward, once they're developed, which was also exclaimed, once they are developed, they will get product that's completely exclusive to them as a result of it. So that includes some bundle to automatically get some Elder Dragon. You got a Bioluminescence Dragon. These are animals that have been agreed upon. These are not going to be released to the general public, at least in the state that the Kickstart backers get them, not in the same capacity. So they're still being rewarded for stuff. They're still getting what they're paid for, but that's what they paid for. They did not pay for some entitlement or some ownership of a product in any other sense beyond, hey, I'm going to get these perks because I invested the money. And the perks is pretty much where it ends. That's where all the legal stuff basically ends. So, as far as entitlements, I mean, after post release, after the game is released, the game's gonna make more money than what the Kickstarter actually put in if it's set up correctly. So by set up correctly, let me rewind on that. So if the game does not have a bunch of people trying to make themselves out to be total trash by bashing this, by trying to cause financial damages to the product, such as exclaiming how it's a dead product, how it should just be abandoned, like you see in some forums and elsewhere, it's it's expected to actually make more than what the Kickstarter would be combined, right? So you look at video games like The Isle. I don't know how familiar some of you people are with The Isle. The Isle is a very similar, it's the same genre of type of survival game. So it's basically where you live as an animal, you survive as an animal, you play as an animal, you eat, you drink, you basically are something else. This is like Day of Dragons, but with dinosaurs. Best way to just describe it as a simplistic way. I understand that people are gonna blow up on YouTube and whine and cry that, oh my gosh, I can't be comparing. It's true. Okay. It's very true. So in the Isle, it first launched 4 years ago. If you look at the funding sources that the Isle had 4 years ago versus now, its player base is in a hundreds of thousands. Okay, so when you put $20 times 100,000, you get what? That is 200,000. No, that's 2 million. Yeah, that's $2 million. Okay, so say you got 100,000 players since Kickstarter. That's $2 million. So you're already four times what, say if excuse me, say if Day of Dragons was that big, Day of Dragons would be four times the income of the Kickstarter. So it sounds like a big number. Kickstarters are great. They really did help. They did an amazing job in helping this game start. Okay, but that's why it's called Kickstarter, right? So some YouTubers want to play at this drama, they want to blow it up and make it out to be more than what it really is a kickstart investment to go into what they want. Now, Day of Dragons, Jo, the lead developer, only asked for $12,000. That's it. Now I say that it's it when I know for some people that is a whole lot of money. But in regards to a business, he only asked for 12,000. He did not ask for 500,000. So people investing more than that, that was their choice. No one robbed anyone. No, Jo did not go into anybody's house with a bag and tell them to throw their money and credit cards in it. He never did that. As much as some of these people want to pretend that he did, pretend that these people did not voluntarily invest in what they knew that's clearly spelled out was just to support a game to come to fruition. They volunteered for it. So to say that it's a scam because they chose to pay is absurd. I mean, I'm not going to tell what my contribution is because I don't care for these titles. Because I probably paid more than half of them. But, anyways, when it comes to Kickstart stuff, you gotta take it with a grain of salt. You gotta understand that what you're going to get is doesn't even have to be a new product. Some this Kickstarter and other websites like it is made for funding to start a project. It doesn't mean that the project is ready to go. It doesn't mean it's already completed. It could even be in blueprints. You got Kickstarter programs where there people are asking for almost 50 grand just to get the CNC machine to actually produce their first prototype. So you got to understand when you're bashing a video game that came out that's lacking features that I don't know why on earth you would think it'd have from the launch. It doesn't make sense. It and this is not opinion, this is actual fact. Kickstarter even boasts that a lot of products are not complete. I don't know why anyone would assume otherwise for anything because there's never been even Star Citizen. So if you're familiar with the video game Star Citizen, which I want to make this plain as day on here, Star Citizen started out as a Kickstarter where it promised that you basically had the universe, right? Now, I mean, they've done amazing things now. But if you compare Star Citizen had so much issues when this game launched after the Kickstarter that Steam, the corporation of Steam, literally just refunded people's game codes. Like you didn't have to ask for it. They immediately went from account to account to account to account, and they refunded hundreds of thousands. If you made a complaint about Star Citizen on their community forums, they just sent you a refund. It wasn't some like drama like dragged out. Oh, I got to talk to tech support. Steam, as in Valve Corporation, they said, "Here's your money back. We're not going to hear you complaining anymore. We're done with the complaints. Just be gone." And then Star Citizen saw what happened, and they're like, "Hey, you know what? We did promise a lot of stuff. Let's make this right." So, when you got a situation like Day of Dragons, you got to actually give it time to make things right. So if you feel that they overpromised in some way what you're actually going to get, you need to understand that they need time. You cannot just get this magical completion in seconds just because you have 500 grand can be eaten in 2 minutes. And if you've got, say, gosh, let's say you're paying 50,000 a year for 10 artists, so you could be eating up, say, 10 hours, no, about 20 hours a dragon. So you get 2 dragons a week. Yeah, you could actually suck up that money pretty fast. So you can suck it up very fast and still get not as fast of work done because you're talking at least 20 hours per animal. Okay, so 20 hours per animal in a month, that means if JO right now stopped paying all the coders, stopped all further development, and just did dragons, you're probably gonna get 5, 6, 7 dragons ish in a month because it still takes time. Just because you say, "Oh, I'm just gonna take 500 grand and I'm gonna throw it to Johnny and Jim over in this art class or whatever, wherever you got them from, they're magically gonna pop up 1,000 animals." Yeah, good. Let's be real here. That's not gonna happen. That's just not gonna happen. So to this Kickstarter stuff with Star Citizen, they realized that there were some issues going on and they took time to build it. The game that you have right this second to play as Star Citizen is no it's literally like a completely different game from when it first launched. Like you can almost are these developers have done such an incredible job today that if they were not given the time that they had, they wouldn't be near where they're at. They wouldn't, like flat out. They would not be as good as it is right now if the player base did not at large give them time, despite the few people who started all the drama. If everyone listened to that 10% who just want to have a game burn, then we wouldn't have this product. We wouldn't have a game that has blown up so far out of proportion from where it was before that it's now a $300 million game. Okay, you need to understand that. So if you want Day of Dragons to succeed, you really want to be amazing, stop with the garbage YouTube videos trying to attack it and freaking go off on everything from pee jokes and everything else. Yeah, I'm not going to touch that. You need to give it time. So that pretty much concludes it. Some things that I do gotta go over is this is a meme that a friend of mine came up with, and it made so much sense to this whole situation of people jumping on things. So there's gonna be a lot more content involved. There's actually another video that's a whole lot bigger than this, and that I'll deal with later. But yeah, let me know what you think so far, and this will determine on how particularly I make the next videos. Please like and subscribe or hate and subscribe, or whatever you want to do. I personally don't care, to be honest with you, but here it is. Thank you very much.